I guess just kind of start off by telling us what happened through your eyes.
Okay. Well, I take an annual Crater Lake trip every year around the summer with a bunch of my friends. And so it's about 5.5 hours from my location, and I get up pretty early. So that morning, July 11th, Friday, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning, and I went about my day putting on my camping, clothing. I took a shower, put my hair up in a bun, and a baseball cap over. Little did I know that that would make a massive difference in the next few minutes. And so I shaved down my beard, which also made a big difference. And then I could hear a large ruckus and commotion of what could only be described as a fight going on in my downstairs neighbors. It began to sound escalating, and then we could hear racial derogatory slurs being flown at us from the downstairs unit. I thought that was a little bit odd, but it unfortunately tends to happen in that apartment complex and in that area of town a lot. And so a few moments later, my mother came in to knock on my door. She's been staying with me all this year to get her citizenship. She's been an alien resident my whole life, and with everything that's been going on, she wanted to get her full citizenship, so I told her to come on down, and she's been doing that. She did that earlier this year, and it was a pretty big moment for my family. And so she came knocking on my door and simply said, "Abraham, there's a fire outside." And being a typical, older son, I kind of brushed it off a bit and said, I'll go check it out. So I went out to my living room, opened my door, and when I opened my door, it was like opening a portal to a hell. Is the best way I could describe it. It was an entire wall of fire, and it was completely unrecognizable. What would have been there before as a view would have been looking over into my parking lot, and I could see my stairwell, but none of that was visible at all. Within a few seconds, the flames reached out and singed my beard. I slammed the door shut and ran it back inside of my apartment, got some towels wet my beard a bit, put some towels under the door, and everyone at that point was already a little bit awake because of the disturbance, and so they lined up behind me. We'd gone over rescue and evacuation plans in my apartment with my family for a couple years, just because, as you know, last year there was a lot of evacuations from a lot of the wildfires. So we were very fortunate enough to have a plan in motion prior to this event. So I got everyone to the side of my living room. I have a balcony terrace. It's about second story floor, and it's all made of wood. And I opened it up, and I send out my partner out first, because she's had the most practice running that drill. And then I send out my mother next, but like most people in that situation, she hesitated. She's almost 80. And so she's already not the most mobile person to begin with. And it's about a 23 to 26 foot drop. At that point, the entire right-hand side of my terrace is on flames. So I put her on the side of my back, and I tell her, broken bones are going to be a better outcome than if you stay up here. So I throw her over. I can't see where she lands because there's so much smoke happening. And then my little brother proceeds to jump in after her. And then I go look down to find my dog, and he's nowhere to be found. He's a large breed German Shepherd dog. It's a big dog, about 112 pounds. So I run to try to go find him, and I find him in our bedroom, which is in the deepest part of our apartment complex. I bring him back. By the time I bring him back to that balcony, the entire balcony is essentially engulfed in a perfect shape like this, leaving only just a small window of visibility left. So I pick him up, and with all my strength, I throw him through that little window of visibility. Once that happens, the motion of throwing him through completely sealed me in, and I'm staring at another wall of flames. And so I move back and look to my side, and the side where my door is flames are coming in through there. The entire wall, my AC unit is cooking, windows are starting to crack. And so at that point, I can hear my family on the end of this firewall essentially just mentally and verbally preparing for my loss that they're going to deal with, because it doesn't look visible that I'm going to be able to get out of that. And I step back to my apartment, and at that point, I just had a little survivor voice in my head that said, run to the farthest end of your apartment and then sprint towards that wall. And when you get to where you think the railing is, jump as high as you can, put your hands above your head, and then when you get there, turn your head like this and pull your knees up and you'll be fine. You will be protected. So I can't really describe it other than just, inner monologue, but I did exactly that, and I punctured through the firewall, and at that point, I land, and it was a terrible scene to land to, because as soon as I land, I tuck and roll, and extinguish myself out, and then I find my mother on the ground with a lot of blood everywhere from her legs, and what could only be described as third-degree burns, struggling to get out from the front of the fire, and my little brother, my partner, trying to pull her out, but the flames and heat is so pregnable that it's hard to even get that close. So once I land, I put myself out, help them aid her. We get to the sidewalk, retrieve our dog, and head to the front of the complex. As you can see in many of the local news outlets, they've all reported footsteps of blood on the sidewalk that is stained, and those are my mother's blood on that sidewalk. And so then after that, I got everyone and flagged first responders, and that's when I noticed our downstairs neighbor, who I believe started this, just visibly there and kind of just a little bit out of it, watching the flames. And so I approached him, I detained him, and then I got law enforcement involved and passed them over to him, and simply just stated that he's a #1 suspect right now, and that he shouldn't be able to leave, and that he should be processed. And then at that point, EMTs saw that I had massive burns and lacerations on both arms, and they sent me over to Emmanuel Hospital to be treated at the burns victim unit along with my mother.
You've had a plan in place for something like this. Do you think that saved your guys' lives?
Without a doubt. The fire marshal, I received a phone call from the fire marshal the next day, just stating that, that plan in place that we had really did save our lives. Just to reiterate, when I landed on the other side of that flaming wall and pulled my family to the front complex, that is exactly when the first fire truck landed and arrived in the parking lot. And that was the first engine to get there. When I looked back, I pulled out my phone to document what it was, and by then the entire front of my building was engulfed. And we were just really concerned about our upstairs neighbors that are on the 3rd floor, because this is 5 in the morning. I mean, anyone that isn't awake for work is dead asleep. My whole family were in their pajamas when I had to evacuate them that way. Luckily, I was wearing my lucky green pants, that are my camping pants, and that helped me a lot get through those flames, because I was the last one there. So we were really concerned about our neighbors, and fortunately, the day wasn't done giving us enough miracles, because first responders were able to get to my upstairs neighbors and evacuate them through the windows of the farthest end of the apartment complex.
Tell me a little bit more about your arms.
So my arm, all of my fingerprints got singed off pretty deeply. I have 2nd-degree deep tissue burns on all my fingertips, my bottoms of my wrists, all the way down to my elbows. And you can see a little bit of the burns popping out right there. I'm very fortunate that that's the only injuries that I got, especially if you see any of the media coverage of my apartment complex. Us being in the 2nd unit and what I believe being targeted, being the epicenter of where the fire started, made it nothing short of a miracle that we were able to get out in 2 minutes.
How's your mom?
My mother's doing good. She's just gone through her first wave of surgeries and grafts, but she's got a long way to heal, and luckily she's stable.
What about, is she in high hopes?
She's in really high hopes that the district attorney's office, along with the local justice system, is gonna bring us justice for what's happened to us. I mean, we were immediately impacted as far as injuries, and we believe we were targeted. But in my opinion, in targeting us, he was completely reckless and endangering everyone else in that apartment complex's life, and he had no considerations over that. And so we're just hoping that we're going to get justice for that, and that's kind of what's keeping her going. She's told me multiple times she doesn't want something like this to happen again for him, so.
So what are those conversations like? I mean, you just went and visited her?
Yeah, so she makes fun jokes saying that, I bring her pho soup from Luck Lack, and she'll make fun jokes and joke around saying, you saved my life once, but you've saved my life 3 times now with this pho. So this pho is really keeping me alive, and so I just want to shout out Luck Lack for making an amazing vegan pho, because it's really keeping my mother's spirits up, along with just the ongoing investigation.
She give you any crap for throwing her off?
She did. She said, well, I couldn't have been a little bit stronger to throw her further, but I did the best I could, so. And I know it's just her jesting and trying to, break through and create some humor and some levity, because we're gonna be having to deal with this for a long time. It's gonna be a very traumatic scar on us, and it's gonna take a lot of therapy sessions. We're just very fortunate enough that our local friend and family community is really wrapped around us and has really taken care of us, and I can't be grateful enough about that. Like I mentioned earlier, as soon as I was able to get my family out and I landed, me and my family carried my mother to the front of the apartment complex, and at that point it looked like the whole world was outside of my complex. I mean, it was a forced alarm for fire departments. It's a very high alarm. It took, I believe, about 80 different firehouses to come in full force. And so when we were out there, I saw it. I saw him clear as day, and I just couldn't believe the audacity of someone to do something like that and then return to the scene of the crime to watch it. And so at that point, a lot of the other residents there started noticing them, and everyone heard the commotion. So there's enough witnesses to corroborate that a majority of us suspect him of doing this, and for good reason. And so we were all just shocked that he would be there still, and especially because the side of his shirt had a burn mark, and other than my mother and I that were in the flames, no one else there had any evidence of any burn marks. So before anything got wild, I approached him and I detained him, and I took him to the side of a fire truck so that there weren't a large audience, and then I got the attention of 2 police officers, and to just explain the situation that, we believed he was the primary suspect in this that started it, and that at no cost should he be let free, that he should be detained until further questioning. At that point, 2 local law enforcement thanked me for that, and they told me that I needed to seek EMT emergency help. So that's what I did.
When you say you detained him,
I approached him and grabbed him and put his hands behind his back. And at that point, law enforcement saw that there was some sort of disturbance, and I made my statement to them, and I let him go as soon as I knew that they were present and that he wasn't going to be able to go anywhere, and I explained the situation.
So what's next?
Really just my mom's health, and just this journey. I mean, it's going to be months in the making of rounds of different graft surgeries, and then trying to rebuild the semblance of my life that's gone. And me and my family are really just hoping that the local community will have it in their hearts and wallet to help donate to our GoFundMe. That way we can find a new place and try to rebuild our life.
There's one thing you learned from this, what would it be?
If there's one thing I would take from this that I can impart on everybody, is that having a family escape plan for specific emergencies that impact you individually is an incredibly important thing. And running those drills at least once a month can make the difference in seconds to minutes. That can make a difference in your life. So get together with your family and figure out what emergency you think is going to impact you, and run those drills. We've been doing evacuation drills for fires for over 2 years now. So more or less everyone had a plan, and even with a plan in place, you can never truly be prepared for when that happens, but it's a foundation that's incredibly important. So if there was a takeaway from this, is that it's never too late to implement something like that in your day-to-day life, especially for your family.
As you were doing these drills, did you ever think that one day you might actually be using it?
Unfortunately, yeah. That's part of what started. Back in 2020, we had a very large fire, and me and my family had to evacuate to the coast because we were in a code yellow. And I mean, I'm sure everyone in this region remembers those. It was it was unrecognizable. It didn't look like Portland, and so that kind of instilled it in my mind that this kind of event can happen, you know, with climate change happening in the region and forest fires getting closer and closer to the metro area. Having a fire exit plan is something that's not far-fetched and something that could potentially happen. So
Did you lose your home in 2020?
we didn't. We fortunately we sustained a lot of soot damage and ash, and it took a lot of time to clean out. But that apartment standed then. We were able to come back and just clean the area. But it was not an environment that we would have wanted to been staying in during that time. It just wasn't breathable. We were just too close.